Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And this week we are studying Parashat Tetze, and we're studying the holy words of Rav Shimshon Pincus. And the Torah starts off with the episode of the Jewish people going out to battle, and the soldiers seeing a let's move into, we'll get into that in a moment, but the soldiers being confronted with a possible temptation of the enemy's women, daughters, wives that come out to tempt them, to try to distract them in the time of battle. Let's look at the verse. The verse tells us, Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 1, Ki tetze la milchama. This is the beginning of this week's Torah portion. If you go out to war, alo yevecha, against your enemies, untano Hashem Elokecha biyadecha v'shavita shivyo, and the Lord your God will deliver him in your hands, and you take his captives. Comes over here, and we have to realize, says Rav Pincus, that over here the Torah is also hinting to us in all wars against our Yetzer Hara, our evil inclination. And he explains as follows. It happens often, quite often, that a person wants to get better. They want to improve themselves in serious ways of holiness, in ways that they live their lives, change their life for the better. For example, dedicating more time to learning Torah, or learning how to properly pray and connect to prayer, or change a little bit of their social circles, better influence, or live a life more of dignity, tzniut, and the way we speak, the way we dress, in any serious type of change. But we all know that all of those changes are hard, and you need a lot of effort. And it's literally like a war. The first rule, Rav Pincus says the Torah is teaching us, is you gotta go out to war. If you don't go out to war, meaning if you're not ready to put up a fight, an inner struggle, and overcome the temptation of not changing the ways you eat, not changing the people you hang out, not changing the way you speak, if you're not willing to put up a fight because you say, oh, I just can't, I surrender, then that's it. There's no hope in getting better in those areas. The first thing is ki tetze la milchama. When you go out to war, you've got to go out, and then untano Hashem Elokecha biyadecha, and then Hashem is going to give it to you. You'll see siyata d'shmaya. You'll see heavenly assistance in making that change and making that improvement. And then the Torah continues and tells us v'shavita shivyo, and then you're going to return your captive. It doesn't say v'shavita shevi, that you're going to go and collect a captive. No, it's shivyo. You're going to go collect what was taken from you. What does that mean? So he says, Rav Pincus says, that really, you know what the Yetzer Hara does to us? He steals the good things from us. Whatever we have, he goes and he takes. For example, take a person who has a man who has the obligation of providing for his family, and he's got to go to work. And the Yetzer Hara says, oh, you're working from 9 to 5. You have no time. You're very busy at work. You got to put in overtime, and you have the kids, and you have extracurricular, and you have your wife, and you have the house, and da 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 da. You do everything, and there's no time for praying properly with the minyan. There's no time to learn Torah. Everything's just, unfortunately, not there. What's happening? It's basically the Yetzer Hara, which is putting inside the person's mind that you got nothing, and he's taken away all those opportunities from you. We've learned this before. The Rambam says that a working man should learn 9 hours a day of Torah, and the rest of the time he should work. And he'll have enough time to spend with his family and to take care of his work and make a proper livelihood. and do everything he has to do. Now, of course, that's intense, but what Rav Pincus is telling us is that if you don't go out to fight it, you may not get the 9 hours, whatever it may be, but if you don't go out to fight, you're not going to reclaim what is yours. You're not going to reclaim that time which Hashem gave you in order to do good with, in order to elevate. Another example. Anyone's ever went to a kollel or yeshiva at nighttime or Torah center? Sometimes people are dozing off and falling asleep. Now, yeah, they have led a long day of work. They're putting in their effort to come out and to come listen to class or to come learn, whatever it may be. But he says, lahavdil, for a great difference. Have you ever walked into, have you ever walked into a discotheque or a bar? Do you ever see people dozing off in there at night? It's late at night. Those same people worked hard all day. Why is it that in the kollel, in the yeshiva, people are dozing off, but at the bar, at the discotheque, no one's dozing off, and it could be even later hours? All it means is that the Yetzer Hara is going and he's taking the good that you do and he's trying to bring you down. Rav Pincus says, when you understand that, then you're going to go out to war. You're going to do whatever you can. War could be with a cup of coffee in hand. War can be setting yourself up for success in all of the different ways that you want to change. In learning more about it, implementing more about it. And maybe having a buddy system of someone encouraging you and helping you and guiding you. Whatever it may be. But if you don't prepare for war and you don't go out to fight the battle, you're not going to have any success. This is the same lesson in everything in life. If you're not willing to fight for something, then you're not going to get it. Now, I don't mean fight like fight and fight with people, God forbid. That's not the point. The point means that this inner struggle of the Yetzer Hara is coming and trying to make you do something else. If you don't fight back with the Yetzer Hara, that's it. He's yours. That means you're his, and it's over. So that's the first lesson Rav Pincus is teaching us that we learn from. Yes, of course, the Torah is talking to us about the soldiers going out to war, but the truth is we are all soldiers of Hashem, and the truth is we all have our own battles to fight. And those battles are most often internal struggles that we have to deal with different temptations and different comforts and different things that we deal with in our own lives, that if we want to get better, we have to be willing to put up a fight. And we have to train, just like soldiers have to train before they go to battle. We have to train, we have to educate ourselves, and we have to put in all the effort, and that's where we will see our success, B'ezrat Hashem. Now the Torah continues very soon after this whole episode of the men going out to war and being tempted, and then I'm not going to get into the whole story, but right after that it speaks about a ben sorer umoreh, a wayward, rebellious child. Now this rebellious child tells us the Torah tells us that this child was completely going against the will of his parents. He was not listening to them, not abiding by them, to the point where the parents had to bring this child to Bet Din, and Bet Din would have to put the kid down, literally. Very, very harsh. Very, 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 very harsh. And what did this kid do already? Oh, this kid stole money from his parents, bought excessive amounts of meat and wine, and consumed it, didn't listen. And for that, we have to put him down. We say, the Talmud says, let's put him down now because already the way that he is showing himself is in a very negative direction, and it's going to be worse the way he's acting. So it's better to end his life now when he's not so bad than if it's going to be, in 10, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, he's going to be a complete monster. The Gemara tells us, there's two opinions, but one opinion of the Gemara says that this story never happened. There was never a case where a child had to be brought to Bet Din and killed by Bet Din for doing horrible things. So what's the point? The point is rather to learn this lesson and learn this episode and learn a lesson from this episode. So that all of Bnei Israel would see, be careful, and even have your children careful, and even children should be careful, never to do something which is so against their parents. Now, Rav Pincus says, I want to focus on one item which is very often overlooked. The terminology the Torah uses, and pull it up on your screen. Here it is, Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 18. Ki ish, if a man has ben soreru more, a wayward and rebellious son, and eno shomea b'kol aviv kol imo, he does not obey his father and his mother. V'siru oto v'lo yishma alehem, and they chasten him, and he still does not listen to them. Now, later on, the Torah tells us, you know exactly what he did wrong? He was zolel v'soveh. Zolel means he ate in gluttony, and soveh is he drank like a drunkard. We're talking that he ate meat like a glutton, and he drank wine like a drunkard, because it was enormous amounts. It seems from here, explains the Rambam, that the main cause of this child's sin was because he ate kosher meat. It's not even non-kosher meat, kosher meat, and he drank kosher wine, but it was in the way that he did it which would brought him to such a low level, which the Torah says, end his life now and don't let him continue and get worse. What did he do wrong? The Rambam says, you know what this child did? This child ate meat that was part raw and part cooked. It was like raw but not raw, the terminology the Rambam says, and cooked but not cooked. What does that mean? Rav Pincus says, this child was in such a rush to eat such an amount of meat, he couldn't even wait till it got fully cooked or fully roasted. He quickly, like almost half cooked, just ate it and swallowed it quickly. And that was the source of this child's sin. Rav Pincus says from here, we can all learn for ourselves in the way we eat, to be careful and not act like this glutton child, and rather eat with derech eretz, with proper manners and conduct. He says, you know what very often happens? Someone comes or you made for yourself and got a boiling hot soup, or you got a super, super hot tea or coffee. And what do? You make a bracha and you have your lips touch it and you like burn yourself almost. What's the cure to such a hot soup or a hot drink? It's very simple. Just wait. A little bit of patience. No gluttony. You're not in a rush to eat. You're not in a rush to drink. Is someone going to come and take it? Okay, I know if it's you and your siblings when you're like, before 10 years old, you guys are fighting over the noodles or fighting over the candy, so you got to eat quickly. But adults, we're not scared of other people eating our food or eating from our plate or drinking from our cup. He says, what's the rush? Wait a moment, let it cool down. He's funny, he says that there is a sigula, a good luck charm, to have your soup cool down in a miraculous way. You know what he says? He says, learn a couple mishnayot, and then your soup will get cold. Of course, because you're just waiting. Just by mere waiting, and the science will say it will cool down. But a little bit, the Gemara says, you know, if you can tell if someone is holy or not, it's based on the way they eat. There's different ways. Number one is the way they speak, obviously. But another way to know if someone is holy is how do they eat? Do they eat like a glutton, like a pig, stuff in their face quickly? Or are they able to overcome that temptation and eat like a mensch? Eat slowly, eat with proper conduct and etiquette. And this was one of the root causes of this rebellious and wayward child, that he could not just relax. He could not wait for the food to be fully cooked. It was raw but not raw. It was cooked but not cooked, the meat. He then continues with Pincus and tells us that we see that this child wanted to overly indulge in these physical aspects, right? Meat and wine. The kid was 13 years old, right? There's a window. We're talking about a window between 13 and 3 months. Or 13 and 6 months. Wait, let me see. 1 second. Why am I drawing a blank? I think it's 13 and between 13 and 3 months. It's either 13 and 3 months or 13 and between 13 and 13 and 6 months. But we'll get back to that in a moment. But either way, what happened is such a young kid is just trying to indulge in an excessive amount of wine, an excessive amount of meat. Rav Pincus says that it seems like all the kid wanted was to enjoy some life, a little bit of pleasure. Like, so what? And nowadays, this concept is such a foreign concept because the entire world revolves around chasing pleasure or chasing what people think is happiness. More things, more food, more vacations, more traveling, more bigger house, bigger this, faster car. There's no end. And we've fallen into a system of just seeking pleasure, just looking for more comfort. And it's very hard for us to even connect to this concept of this rebellious child, because in our own way, we're just rebellious ourselves. We're just always seeking more pleasure, seeking more comfort. And that's something we have to teach ourselves, lead by example, teach our children, that a state of comfort, a state of pleasure is not the place one grows. Growth comes from what we said before, going out to war, working, putting the boots on the ground, as they say. That's the way a person grows, not sit back, relax, download the information. What happened to us reading up on things or looking things up in encyclopedias or dictionaries? Everything's super easy now. When you used to look up a word in the dictionary, you'd actually remember the meaning and the spelling of it. Nowadays, okay, Siri, okay, Google, how do you, what does this word mean? You don't remember. You didn't work for it. You didn't work hard for it. So the concept of pleasure, of ease, of comfort is the definition of the 21st century. But does that mean it's right? Does that mean that that's the best for us? Not so. And we see this again from this rebellious child. I want to finish off with one more piece from Rav Pincus. And Rav Pincus says that second. Okay, let me pull it out of. One second. It's not here in my notes. Let me pull it out of here. One second. Okay, here we go. So this is what I wanted to bring up that we forgot to speak about this. How old is this child? So it's like I said, it's between ages 13 and 3 months. There's a 90-day window that this child, it can be so rebellious and do all of these things of not listening to his parents and stealing money and buying this excessive amount of meat and wine and consuming it. There's only this 3-month period for this to actually take place. But if he's already above 3 months, past his bar mitzvah, then that's it. He's not considered a rebellious child anymore. He's an adult, and the consequences are not these. What's the point? Why is it just these 3 months? Listen to an amazing thing Rav Pincus says. He says, if this boy, from the moment he became bar mitzvah, started acting this way, and for the first 3 months he's acting in this negative way, well, now he's establishing himself what we call a chazaka. He's establishing himself a new pattern, which is a detrimental pattern, a dangerous pattern. And therefore, only by the beginning of, we all know the hype of becoming a bar mitzvah. The hype of right after bar mitzvah, how amazing it is. If from that point on, the child, right early on, the child is completely rebellious, oh, we got a big problem. Later on, okay, fine. It's but if even with all that hype, he is so disconnected and misbehaving, that's a major problem. We see from here, and this I'll end. Rav Pincus says a fascinating thing. He says that with our own children, our own grandchildren, every boy and every girl, even for bat mitzvah, right when they become bar or bat mitzvah, those beginning 3 months are the most important months of their lives, because the way they set themselves up then is going to decide the trajectory for the upcoming years of adolescence and even adulthood. We see it in the negative way by the rebellious child, but taking the concept of why it was so severe those 3 months, we can flip it and say, this is the most important and the most opportune time for every single child to set themselves up on a path of success. And that is the first 3 months. So the first 3 months are the months where parents and grandparents and teachers and Rebbis and Moras should infuse and do it at all costs to make the first 3 months after bar bat mitzvah the most meaningful, the most growthful part of that child's life. So this way they will continue in that way, because they're setting from right when they become a man, right when they became a woman, they now are being set up on the right path.